слушателей. Вы услышите мнение самой мудрой книги человечества – Библии, о самых сложных проблемах, стоящих перед современным миром. Присылайте ваши вопросы заранее на наш имейл info@rusa.fm или во время передачи по СМС 347 460 08 77.
Добрый день всем, кто сейчас настроен на радио USA. В эфире передача Thank God It's Tuesday. 2 недели мы не имели эту передачу, потому что я была в Израиле, и есть о чем поговорить, что рассказать. Но самое главное, что этот час мы проводим самым великим раввином нашего времени, Равином Манисом Фридманом. И на самом деле разговор пойдет немножко о том, что я видела, и какие у меня появились вопросы на этот счет, как, например, почему в Кнессете нет хабадников. Вот меня этот вопрос немножко удивляет, и хотелось бы узнать мнение Равина Маниса Фридмана, а действительно, почему это так. Так что сейчас же, не теряя времени, переходим к нашей беседе. Hello, Ravina Manis Fridman. Thank God it's Tuesday. Missed our programs, missed the radio, missed speaking to you, missed getting the wisdom, the weekly wisdom that we can count on at this hour. And thank you so, so much. As I just told our audience, the 2 weeks that we did not have a program is because I was in Israel. I was in Israel, Vat HaPoel, World Zionist Organization. We did voting on different issues. It was a political trip. And one thing I could not understand, why isn't there any Chabad representation? Not in World Zionist Organization, not in Knesset. Is there some kind of law that prevents Chabadniks from participating in the political life of Israel and the world in general?
I hope that the explanation is that Chabad works behind the scenes. We're not political activists. We are representing the Jewish view of everything, including politics, including warfare. So hopefully Chabad people are talking to the politicians without becoming politicians, which would be very nice.
So there's no real policy that a Chabad member can go into political circles from within, not as a consultant, but actually as a delegate, a member.
If he becomes that involved, he's become suspect.
A suspect by who?
You know, politics does strange things to people. You can't keep a level head. You can't keep an objective view. Once you start getting involved, taking sides, belonging to a party, identifying with a party, it twists your thinking. So we got to stay objective, we got to stay clean, we got to stay pure. And hopefully that influences the politicians.
I'm going to say something not very nice right now.
I'm sitting down.
Every Chabad rabbi who has a congregation, and not just for any other reason, has to fundraise. Doesn't fundraising kind of can also make somebody impure, because it's also kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to, but there's still always a potential there as well. So
There is. Not as powerful as politics. And also, tzedakah is a mitzvah. If you won't give to my Chabad house, give to a different Chabad house, but give. So we're really promoting a mitzvah along with the need to support your own Chabad, making friends, reaching people you wouldn't reach otherwise. There's a lot of good. And yes, you always have to be careful. But politics, boy, that eats people up. I mean, look what it does to every prime minister. They come in sounding tough, and all of a sudden...
But then I have to ask, why don't we have enough faith in ourselves that we can go inside and change everything from the inside, bring Rebbe's teachings inside politics?
It's a good question. But I really believe, I hope, that we are bringing the Rebbe's message to every politician in his office. I'm not sure it would help if we actually became politically involved. Then you can't be neutral, you can't be apolitical. It would be very hard. The Rebbe stayed apolitical, even though he had very strong opinions about what's good for the country and what's not. The main point of it is, and this has been the problem for 70 years, when Mordechai in Iran, our worst enemy, most dangerous enemy, when he refused to bow, when everybody else was bowing, people were worried, but also convinced that this is going to bring such disaster, such anti-Semitism. It's going to make things so much worse. Just bow. Don't make trouble. Mordechai did not bow. And what brought about the miracle of Purim? His not bowing. We got to stop bowing. I know it's very scary if for a political leader, for a prime minister, to get up and say, no, there will be no ceasefire. No, there will be no packages delivered. We're at war. And if you don't like war, then don't start one. Stop bowing.
Well, criticism or not, Netanyahu is doing exactly that right now. He is standing strong. Do you feel he's standing strong enough?
No, because there's constant talk. Yeah, well, we'll try a ceasefire. Well, if they give us the names of the hostages, we'll do a... No, there is no thought, no possibility. There should be no conversation about it at all. Two-state solution is back on the agenda? How did that happen? How did that happen? Also, can you finish the war by the end of the week? And tell me why not. Just end it. I don't mean quit. I mean finish what you started. What's taking so long? You got to kill 4 guys? Takes you 100 days? We're bowing. We're bowing to pressure. We're bowing to public opinion. We're bowing to the threat that if we're not nice, they're going to hate us, as if they love us.
Rabbi Friedman, does it seem like there is again this worldwide anti-Semitism? It just seems like everybody is out to destroy us again for some reason. I don't want to be negative. Maybe I'm getting into the spirit of Purim, but realistically, it feels like everything is against Jewish people all over the world. Am I wrong?
No. The question is, what will that do? What we know for sure is that the world's attention is on the Jews. Surprise, surprise. Now, well, it is a surprise, and it should be, because we are a tiny, tiny minority with a tiny, tiny little country. Why do we get so much attention? What is this? The whole world is obsessed with Jews. There's no reason. Unless there's something we're supposed to show the world, tell the world, teach the world. And in order to do that, we need their attention. So it would be nice to say this whole war with Hamas, that's just to get your attention. Now that we have your attention, we want to tell you something. You are so bad. You are so lost. You are so hopeless. You're so pathetic. You don't know up from down. You don't know man from woman. You don't know life from death. You're in bad shape. We can help you if you're listening. That's it. It's time for us to be the light to the nations. We have their attention, and we have what to say. All that's missing is the courage to say it. That's all. So the attention will continue to be on us until we say it. And when we say it, all the anti-Semitism will disappear. It's so shallow, it's so nonsensical.
Rabbi Fridman, but even that, wouldn't it make sense to say it from some kind of a high point, from a high position? Wouldn't it be nice if we had power behind us in order to say it, which of course brings me back to my original question, politics. It seems like it's still where the decisions are made and moves are made. So why not there?
It would be good to do it from a position of strength, which means finish the war like you can, and then speak from victory. Yes, that would be perfect. Why is the war not over? Why? There's no good reason. None. We fight like we're afraid to win. That's a terrible inferiority complex. That's a lack of sovereignty. So the political system is not working. And everybody agrees to that. But now is not a time to start changing the leaders and the Knesset Now we have to be behind the prime minister and encourage him to win the war. Not undermine him during a war. But I think the people outside of Israel who are not that closely engaged or involved or influenced, who can still think a little clearly, a little objectively, we have to send the message to Israel. We're not afraid. Don't worry about us. Do what you need to do and get this thing done. Don't bow. It's Purim time.
Rabbi Fridman, is it true that the Rebbe told Netanyahu that he is the last prime minister of Israel?
I hope that was a positive statement, not a negative. Well, that wasn't a terrible prediction. Well, if Mashiach comes today, yes, he will be the last prime minister.
That's kind of what I'm hinting at. Is that some kind of a prophecy that the Rebbe made?
I'm not sure because I didn't hear it exactly, but it sounds good to me. We don't want to have to go through another election with another prime minister without Mashiach. So,
Rabbi Fridman,
just say amen to that.
Amen. Rabbi Fridman, another thing that is being heavily discussed in Israel, and of course outside of Israel, because everybody cares, all the Jewish people for sure care about what is happening in Israel, and that is the age-old question about and again, I don't like to put it this way, but I'm not the one who is putting the names on this, but the ultra-Orthodox joining the army. This is the way it is said in Israel, so I'm repeating it. So anyway, we know that Defense Minister Yoav Gallant just proposed a law to put into law that Haredi ultra-Orthodox Jews have to join the army, that they cannot be excused anymore as they have been. Do you agree with this position, or do you think that there's a problem there?
See, again, there are morals, there are values, there are principles, and then there's politics. If you want ultra-Orthodox people to go to the army, convince them. Don't legislate. Don't force people. And if you can't convince, then there's something wrong with you. You never had to convince people to go to the army. Everybody wanted to go to the army. What happened all of a sudden? Now, hey, why do I have to go? Why don't they go? The enthusiasm, the idealism is fading rapidly. So now, out of desperation, you're going to draft yeshiva boys? And then complain that you have to give them off on Shabbos and that you have to feed them kosher and give them time to put on their tefillin? It's short-sighted. It's not thoughtful. It's not. And besides, every decent country in the world exempts clergy.
But we're supposed to be a whole country of clergy. We're just not playing the part just yet.
It's not a Jewish idea. It's a universal principle. Back in the days of Pare, Yosef passed legislation that the ministers or the clergy are exempt of taxes. Anyway, it's mean-spirited. It's not thoughtful. It's not good for the army. But on the other hand, every yeshiva bacher should feel obligated to protect his country and defend his country, like the people in the times of David HaMelech. Not everybody, but those who are up to it, those who have what it takes, particularly if you're not that successful in your studies. So, go do something important. So I think it would be pretty easy to encourage. You don't have to force.
Well, there seems to be a problem to accommodate, again, ultra-Orthodox. I hate saying that, but I have to, because that's what everybody calls Haredi Jews in Israel. So there's a problem. Some people feel like it's unfair to give special treatment to a group of people versus treating everybody equally. So where is the middle ground? How can we come to terms and find this middle ground? What should take place?
See, that's a very good question. And that's why just drafting them will create more problems than solutions, because you haven't thought this thing through. You just don't. It's not fair. It's so woke, which is, of course, ridiculous. I have to tell you an interesting story. In Minnesota, there was a woman, a mother, who didn't want her son to go to war in Vietnam. And he was of age. And he was called to the draft board for interview and health test, and they were going to draft him. A Jewish mother, when it comes to her children, she said to him, I'm going to give you a letter. Don't look at it. Don't read it. You'll give it to the sergeant in charge, or the officer in charge, and you won't have to go to war. Anyway, he goes, and he gives the letter to the guy in charge. After he was passed physically and everything else, he gives her the letter. The guy reads the letter, flies into a rage, and says, "Who do you think you get out?" And threw him out, and he never took him. What did it say in the letter? My son is allergic to wool, so can you make him a uniform out of cotton?
Smart.
He got so enraged. Oh, we're going to make you special uniforms? Get out. What a brilliant understanding of army mentality. You telling us what to do? Yeah, so they're going to come in there and say, we have to daven mincha now. You know, or my tzitzit tore, and now I need new tzitzis. So what are you going to do? By the way, they make the best soldiers. Those who go, because they go with the enthusiasm and the belief and the trust of God behind them. They know they're doing a mitzvah. They are not bowing. They would make the best soldiers. But yes, they need certain considerations. And how will they get along with those who are not? Anyway, it's a complicated thing, and it's not just draft everybody. Just make chaos balagan.
It is very complicated because at the voting, we actually had people who come from service later to vote. No one is excused. I mean, no matter how high up a position someone holds, they still serve, their children serve. There's no such thing in Israel that someone is above somebody else. And this is why people have a lot of problems with, again, ultra-Orthodox who are at this point still excused. And this is the popular opinion. If we're not making exemptions for people in positions or their children, why should we be making exemptions for anybody at this point? So,
but if there are no exceptions, who are you fighting for? If everyone's fighting, who is everyone fighting for? You fight to protect your family. Men fight to protect their wives, their children, their homes. If there are no wives and there are no children, there are no homes, what are we fighting for? One of the segments of society that we fight for are our scholars and our righteous leaders, our clergy. That's so normal, that's so natural, it's so universal. You have to have people who are exempt, who you are protecting by going to war. If everybody is fighting, you don't know who you're fighting for. I got to tell you an interesting. At the beginning of last week, I was ready to talk about it on our Tuesday show. I was at a program where the other speaker was a young woman, Israeli, who was kidnapped and spent 55 days in Gaza and was released. To make a long story short, her strength of character, her self-confidence, her purposeful reaction to the whole The terrorists who were holding her had respect for her. Listening to her, I felt like such a child. This is like the biggest heroes that we had in Russia, who survived the gulags and survived the labor camps and outlived the communists. And those were our big heroes. This girl puts them all to shame. I mean, she didn't have a movement behind her. She wasn't a Chabad chassid. She didn't have years of Hasidic training, of loyalty and devotion and fearlessness. She's just a girl who went to a song festival. It was so humbling. It was so awesome. And she didn't make a big deal about it. It was just like, that's what you got to do, so you do what you got to do. Unbelievable.
Rabbi Friedman, the whole Israel is like that right now. I mean, you feel humbled. I felt humbled just being in the presence of any Israeli right now, because the strength and the strength of character that they exhibit right now is uncanny, absolutely uncanny. And I have to say another thing that is everywhere, miracles. Everywhere in Israel, there are miracles. And we have visited Kfar Aza, and we have visited the Nova site. And in Kfar Aza, I was absolutely blown away by the girl who showed us around, who is from Kfar Aza. 30% of the people already returned there, which is incredible. After such an atrocity, people are coming back. And she was showing us around, and she knew everybody personally because it's a small, quaint place. And she was saying how she did not understand how some houses were almost bulletproof. They were shot at, but the bullets didn't go through. She also showed us a house of a girl who came out and ran into two terrorists who told her that they are Muslims, they're not going to do anything bad to her, for her to go back into the house, that, you know, religious Muslims don't do that, when we know what was done everywhere else in Kfar Aza. But she just returned home and stayed home and was spared. And this is some kind of a, how can we understand why it would be like that, why it's not even for everybody, equal for everybody? How were some people spared? And there was a story from one police officer who realistically stood 7 seconds of Kalashnikov round. He covered a rabbi, and all the shots were fired around him. Not a single shot got him. And the terrorist was very close. I mean, he did realistically. He went back and he visited that site, and it was just bullets all around, very close, but not a single one hit him. I mean, what can we make of this spiritually? What should we think about all of these things?
Very, very powerful. What it tells us is that those who died did not die by accident, did not die in vain. It was all part of a divine plan. And the proof is, those who weren't destined didn't. In the same place, under the same fire, under the same enemy. Yeah. So you can see that God is carefully choosing whose time had come and whose time had not come. There are no mistakes, no accidents, no wasted lives. You know, there are people, we've talked about this before, have a hard time with the idea that God is intimately involved, engaged, vulnerable, and concerned and affected by what happens to us. I've had this debate with certain rabbis. God is not vulnerable. He can't be affected. It doesn't really matter to him. other than he wants to do us a favor. We go on and on and on about this. One rabbi who I've had this conversation with was very, very distraught after the October 7 business. Couldn't understand. Why? Why were those people massacred? Why would God allow it? So I said, well, because those people were not important. God didn't need them. Well, he got really upset, as he should, and he was furious with me. How can you say that? How can you talk like that? I said, I'm just quoting you. And he realized that his whole approach to God and to Judaism and to Jews has been terribly wrong-minded. Of course God cares. Of course every life, every suffering, every pain matters to him infinitely. So unless there is a very, very good reason that we don't want to even know, but unless there is a very good reason, no one stubs their toe or gets a paper cut. And this proves it. I mean, the Holocaust also, but that was harder to see. How come 6 million died, but not every Jew the way they intended? So, was somebody choosing who survives and who doesn't? Or was it random? Of course it was chosen. Nobody died in vain. Nobody died because there were bullets flying around. Proof is, here's a guy, bullets flying at him from all sides. Bullets don't kill unless they're intended to, by the Creator. It's such a powerful statement of God's involvement and God's concern. And so every time we see an act of God, and we only notice it when a miracle happens, but that reminds us that even when we don't see the miracles, they're always happening. Nothing happens without reason. Because if there's no reason for it to happen, then nothing can make it happen. Chaos doesn't cause things. You cause chaos. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe once. He wrote, I find myself in a condition, in a circumstance, and the Rebbe says, no, you don't find yourself, you put yourself there. Don't be such a lightweight. I find myself. You went there, you chose it, you live fully. Don't tiptoe through life. So everything happens for a reason, and this just brings it home so powerfully.
Rabbi Friedman, I hate to turn this conversation into a cartoon, but since we're speaking about everything happening for a reason, I have to ask about the Oscars. What is the reason for that cartoon display of ridiculousness, especially when we have Jewish people who win an Oscar for Auschwitz come to the microphone and make a mockery of everything that he stands for and for the work that he did. I don't want to remember. I don't remember the name of the director who said a ridiculous speech that is being circulated on the internet. But he's not the only one. He's not the only one. It's just Oscars is a mockery of morality. And what is the reason for so much attention for that? Why are these people given a microphone? Why are they allowed to? What I know, I'm asking you to be Hashem's secretary, and I apologize for that. But your thoughts are very, very important. Why are we giving these people such a stage? Why did God give them such a stage?
Why we give them the stage is the better question. God works in mysterious ways. Do we also? Do we have some mysterious reason for letting people who are brainless offer their opinions about world affairs? And yeah, that's a good question. I'm not even sure I know what you're referring to, but I did hear something. Some guy got up and said, I reject being Jewish or something. That was that?
He just lumped everything together. Holocaust, October 7th, and Gaza, and he's Jewish, and everything. He said that everything is to dehumanize everybody. Basically, this is like in a synopsis of what he said, basically.
Right, because, if you're a good actor and you can mimic stuff, you must be very smart. And your opinion counts. So it's kind of the counterbalance. Here, Israel is supposed to say something cosmic, and then we have Jews who are babbling nonsense. This is the balance of good and evil, light and dark, sweet and bitter. But what happens in Hollywood is the least of our worries.
Rabbi Friedman, okay, I know, it is, but it's still this machine that keeps on going, that we kind of wanted to stop going already, for people to start kind of, even though people are waking up, they're still mesmerized by the glamour and by this glitz and the fame and fortune, and unfortunately, we're still in this world of this kind of situation. And actually, this is probably the most painful moment. Well, that's the most painful thing I'm experiencing right now, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that we're still living in a world of silliness, that we're still prioritizing something that really means nothing, and that we're still kind of wowed and blown away by certain things. So
it's not as bad as it used to be. They don't get the viewership that they used to get, the Oscars, and the people are fed up with it. But I wonder, what the average non-Jew who hears this stuff, what is their reaction? You might think, oh, this is going to cause a lot of anti-Semitism. See that? Even the Jews know how bad they are. Maybe. But that's going to happen to people who are very far gone already, who don't need any help being anti-Semitic. They're doing fine on their own. I think the vast majority of non-Jews look at it like, what kind of Jew is this talking bad about his own people? So he's just making a fool of himself, thinking that he is going to endear himself to the non-Jewish world. It's sad. That's part of the bowing. I know you hate all Jews, but maybe you'll like me because I also hate Jews, you see, so we can be friends. Yeah, but nobody trusts a Jew who turns on Jews. The world knows. The world knows we're the chosen people. They're a little frustrated by it, a little puzzled by it, but they know. And when a Jew says, yeah, well, I'm against being Jewish, well, then go home and be quiet because you don't count.
Oh, God.
Am I giving people too much credit? No, it's true. 80% of the non-Jewish world are not impressed by a Jew who wants to endear himself to the non-Jewish world at the cost of his fellow Jews. Nobody buys it. It's nasty.
It's nasty, but how come, for now, they are at the head of this secular world? Just look at the Biden's cabinet. Most of the people are Jewish. Most of the head of the departments are Jewish in his cabinet. And that's actually brings us back to the conversation that we started with. Is it good or bad?
Well, first of all, it proves the point about what happens to you when you get involved in politics. You lose your brains. Yeah, it's like fanatical fans of a baseball team. No matter how bad the team is, you can't stop rooting for your team. The same happens in politics. You know how bad your party is? Yeah, but it's my party. I have to. So, Jews of Hollywood and Jews of politics, no great shakes.
I hope they're not the cause of anti-Semitism.
Well, they're certainly not the solution. Today, the trick is to be part of the solution. The problem we've had for a long time. Today, we could be the solution. So it's frustrating that we're not doing it. It's so easy, so necessary. The world is so ready. Just do like Mordecai did. Why are you bowing to Haman? There's nothing about him that makes him any better than you. Isn't that just a simple truth? So here's what it boils down to. You have people, Jewish, intelligent people, and they sit around saying, we have the answer. We have true morality. We know how things should be. So somebody says, well, then why don't you get up and say it at the UN? And the answer is always the same for the last 70 years. Well, they're not going to believe it just because I'm saying it. Well, then why don't you say Moses said it? Why don't you say God said it? Not on your authority. Well, they don't believe what Moses said. They don't believe what God said. Why would they believe? In other words, and this is really, really dangerous and painful. In other words, you're saying that the truth won't make a difference. You know it's true, you believe it's true, but you can't say it because you don't think truth is going to make a difference. Or you don't really think it's true. Either way, it's very sad. If you don't believe that truth makes a difference, then you've sold the store. You've given it all up. Then there is no hope. Whoever lies best wins. And you bought into that. Now you're convinced that that's true. And that telling the truth won't have any effect or any influence whatsoever. Well, then go home. You're not useful. You're part of the problem. That's what Mordecai did. The whole society, 127 countries, bought the lie. Haman is the smartest, the biggest, the best, the greatest. He will do what is best for our country. You know what Esther said? Why would I allow Haman to do what he's planning to do? It's not good for the treasury. It's not good for the country. Never mind, not good for the Jews. So Mordechai simply said, no, what you're saying is not true. He is not God. He is not worthy of worship. He's just a selfish guy trying to make himself important. That was the truth, and it changed everything. In a second, the king said, Haman, nah, hang him up. That's it. And all that worship and all that bowing and all that, in a minute it was gone. All the anti-Semitism and all the criticism and all the marching and all the protesting, it could be over in a minute. Because truth is very powerful.
Rabbi Fridman, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for making it clear. I just hope everybody, I think people are getting on board, and I think the more we speak about it, the more on board they're going to get. So, yeah, compromising is over and done with. We have to stand ground, and we have to be strong, and we have to learn from a lot of people who are in this position now, like the girl you spoke about, and learn from our past, from our from the heroes in our history, and hopefully this is the way we're gonna win very, very quickly this ridiculousness that we just need to win over, and be done with it.
So thank you very much. This show is a breath of fresh air.
Wow.
In a polluted city.
Rabbi Fridman, thank you so much. Your words mean the most, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and until next week.
Happy Purim.
Happy Purim. Thank you. Ну а всех, кто был с нами сегодня, большое вам спасибо. Спасибо за то, что вы проводите этот час с нами, за то, что вы хотите улучшить этот мир так же, как и мы, так как делает это Рабби Фридман всегда. И, кстати, хочу сказать, что у него сейчас совершенно намечается гениальный каббалистический класс. Если вас это интересует, зайдите на itsgoodtoknow.org. Там вы увидите информацию по поводу курса, насколько каббала вообще влияет на наш мир сегодня. Очень интересно. Рекомендую. Вот. Ну и все. Спасибо вам огромное за вашу доброту и за ваше желание быть лучше. С этими словами я, Аня Пекерман, и передача Thank God It's Tuesday. Прощаемся со всеми до следующей недели.